As Ted was doing his intro today, he asked how long we've all been here. I can tell you that my first LOHAS conference was in 19, what year was it? Oh, it was 10 years ago. It was LOHAS 4 at the Claremont in Berkeley. So how many of you were there at 10 years ago? I talked to one gentleman last night, so there's about a half dozen. But basically, you know, we talk about the 10 years and we talk about the fact that we feel a little bit old. And not that the content is old. Yes, I have a few more pounds and a few less hair follicles and things like that. But the way I look at it is the fact that everything is new. We have a new economy. We have a new political administration. We have talks about new health care. We have, unfortunately, a new retirement, which means you're not going to be able to retire the way we used to. But most importantly, we have this fundamental role of new capitalism. And this capitalism is really driven from the notion of responsible capitalism. It's the new green, it's the new LOHAS. So there's a variety of things that I want your takeaway today on. We kept it simple, keeping in mind that probably three items over the course of a couple days is probably a good number. But during this session, we're going to talk about first the barriers to purchasing eco-friendly products. We're going to talk about how some companies and brands have been able to overcome these barriers. And then lastly, what this really means to your business, regardless of industry, regardless of place in the supply chain, whatever that might be. So again, we have barriers, we have how companies have been able to overcome and what it means to your business. For those of you that would like a copy of this presentation, please see myself or Gwen. We'll be here through the entire session, the entire conference, through the end of the day tomorrow. You can just give us your card and we'll get it to you. Now, if we want to step back at even 100,000 feet and we talk about what is sustainability from a consumer standpoint, really what we're talking about is a continuum in terms of going from left to right that deals with levels of control and then also gets to consumers justifying purchase. So if you go from left to right here, basically what you see is a consumer pathway. And this pathway goes from what goes in a particular consumer's body. So here we're talking about things like food and beverage. You're talking about personal care items. Typically, consumers will move to a second stage, talking about my family. There's lots of talks of pets, lots of talks of what happens in my house. As we progress further, we get into what happens with my community, my country, and then eventually my world. So I think that might be a good framework as we go through the next 2 days, and at least from a consumer standpoint, recognize the fact that some consumers are in different places, different bubbles here, and that as we migrate from left to right, that's where you can get to that self-actualization that Ray just mentioned. Now, the Natural Marketing Institute does a lot of work, as Ted mentioned, within the LOHAS space. We are a strategic consulting and market research firm. We've been conducting the original and only LOHAS research since 2002. It started off just in the US, but now we have 75,000 consumers that we've studied since 2002, not only in the US, but in Japan, 8 European countries, and we have a global 18-country study that's coming up in 2010. So the point of that isn't the fact that we've been out there collecting consumers' attitudes and behaviors and lifestyles and demographics and what they're doing and what they're not doing and so on. The fact is that this LOHAS notion is truly a global phenomenon. Now, for those of you that are not familiar with the LOHAS segmentation model, and this is important to understand because as we go through some of the data and insights that we've captured over the past number of years, looking at various consumer groups is definitely important. So within the LOHAS consumer segmentation model, there is a group called the LOHAS consumer. They represent about 17% of America, and this is the US numbers. And basically what we're doing here is we're taking all 215 million US adults, we're putting them in this room, and we're dividing them into one of 5 groups, okay? So the first group is a LOHAS consumer. About 1 in 6 US consumers, they are the environmental stewards. They are the ones that are purchasing the most green products. They are the consumer group that is the most linked to not only personal health, like you saw in a previous slide, but also the notion of planetary health. And they are very values-driven. In fact, this whole segmentation model is a values-based approach. It is the alignment and association of personal morals, personal ethics, personal beliefs to those of brands and companies. And it's the alignment of those values that cause consumer purchase. The second group is called the Naturalites. They are a group that's very interesting in the fact that they are driven more to consumables than durables. So they're much more likely to be in the consumer packaged goods space as opposed to driving a hybrid vehicle. They, again, are 17% of the US. There's another group, a larger group called the Drifters. Drifters are interesting, and there's been a range of migration patterns, which I'll show you also. They have good intentions, but their behavior does not actually follow through. What I mean by that is they are predisposed attitudinally to the LOHAS market, but for a variety of reasons, whether it's their younger age or a range of other factors, they just don't have the means throughout some of the LOHAS categories to participate. And they're a bit trendy and looking for various products and services that meet those needs there. There's a fourth group called the conventionals. You can see here that the conventionals are the largest consumer segment. They are basically 1 in every 4 consumers in the US. They are what we described as Yankee ingenuity. They are driven from municipality. They do things that they are supposed to be doing, such as recycling, such as using compact fluorescent light bulbs, such as range of other behaviors there. But they are doing environmental behaviors, not necessarily to protect the planet, but to protect their pocketbook. Now, the benefits to them in terms of planetary health are definitely there. They're just down further on the motivations. And then lastly, we have a group we don't like called the unconcerned. Fortunately, they've gotten, they continue to get a little bit smaller over time. But if those of you are trying to figure out, there's a point in time here that is very, very interesting. And what you saw was the most recent numbers, the 2008 numbers on the bar chart on the right there. Yeah. But what's happened over time is that the 2 groups in the middle, that being the drifters and the conventionals, those are the ones that are getting larger.